You're listening to the Bleav in Giants podcast with Giants legend Carl Banks and broadcaster Bob Papa.
Welcome to another edition of Bleav in Giants. Bob Papa, two-time Super Bowl champion Carl Banks. So glad you can join us. CB, we are coming off a win. It's been a long time since we did one of these. A calendar month since we last did one coming off a win.
Boy, they needed this win in the biggest way possible because they made a step forward in defeat against Buffalo. And they had to feel great about themselves going into this game, knowing that there were things that were tangibly correctable, if you will. The effort was there for 60 minutes, and the execution is what made the difference in this game. It should have been a 28-point score, but it was 14. They still have to get better in the red zone, but from an execution standpoint, I thought they did a great job. And I don't think I don't know if it's come out yet, but one of the highlights of this game was the offensive line, not in terms of their dominance, but in terms of their mental execution. In talking to Coach Dable, and I'm sure he doesn't mind me sharing that, he said they had no mental errors on the offensive line. And why is that important, Bob? Go through the list of guys that were not available for this game.
Yeah. Again, they're starting right tackle. I repeated this during the broadcast. As the game was being played, their starting right tackle was on the field at MetLife Stadium the previous Sunday as a member of the Eagles practice squad. And in 7 days, he was starting against Washington, Tyree Phillips. Continue.
It is that part of it, and I say this often because we don't know, we kind of have seen it from Washington over the years. They have an incredible front four, but they don't play hard every single play. So half your battle is the mental aspect of it. If you don't make the mistakes, then the guy has to beat you with his ability. Now, we know they have the ability to do that, and they showed that several times during the game. But just getting the guys blocked that you're supposed to get blocked, it makes a world of difference. Or just getting a hat on the right guy makes a world of difference as to how your offense operates. And you can't say enough about the job that Tyrod Taylor has done in his role as starter. Made great decisions with the football. He was very decisive. And before we, go down, or some of you listeners go down this rabbit hole, yes, the offense is a little different for him. And they'll probably incorporate some of the things that they have him doing into Daniel Jones's game when he returns. But there is no real, in my opinion, controversy. He's your quarterback until he's not. And when the next guy comes in, he's your quarterback. Ask me if Daniel Jones gives you the best chance to win. I say yes. And that's just it. But right now, as a Giant fan, you want to root for the guy that's in there. You don't want to root against the guy that's not, or you don't want to, try to make a case for one or the other. The other guy is injured. He's your starting quarterback. He's your franchise quarterback. Whether you like it or not, that's what it is until it's not.
Well, listen, you and I are on the same page on this one. It's really, it's Giant fans should be happy and excited that Mike Glennon isn't coming off the bench anymore, or a myriad of other people that they've had as backups over the years. They actually have one of those guys that's a backup that's actually good enough to be a starter, but he's not necessarily good enough to be your franchise guy where, a team is going to build their entire organization around him. Tyrod went to a Pro Bowl with Buffalo. He's been a very good player. He's over 500 as a starting quarterback. Reminds me of like the baseball players, being a Yankees fan. There were always these guys that would destroy it in AAA, and they'd come up to the Yankees, and in bursts, they'd play well. But over the course of time, they weren't very successful on the major league level. Then they get sent back to the minors and they'd kill it there. And there's a handful of these kind of quarterbacks, the Gardner Minshews, the Jacoby Brissett's, Tyrod Taylor players that are good enough to start and win games for you. But they're not necessarily guys that you're going to build your program around.
Right.
And then there's a bunch of these other guys that for some reason have pictures on people or whatever, or because they understand the game. They kick around the league for 12 years, but you're deathly afraid if they ever have to come in the game and play.
Right. And
Tyrod, this is great for the Giants that they got a guy that can hold the fort and actually win games for you.
Yeah, and kudos to Joe Shane and Brian Daboll in identifying a competent backup quarterback and one that they didn't let leave the building, because there was a market, and there will be a market for a guy who puts on film what Tyrod Taylor puts on film on a regular basis.
I got a message for our fans out there. Football's back. BetOnline's your number one information source for all your sports wagering info with up-to-the-minute stats, news, scores, and matchup breakdowns. Get the latest game odds, spreads, and totals from the NFL and college football at your fingertips with BetOnline's real-time updates on stats, news, and odds. From week 1 all the way to the college football playoffs and Super Bowl, BetOnline is going to give you access to the best football promotions and contests available anywhere online. So head to the website today or use your mobile device. Get in. So, yeah, this whole and the other thing about this, because I saw Daboll after the game. I'm in the locker room. There's where he does his press thing. There's another locker room attached to it. So I'm kind of sitting there waiting to do the Tyrod Taylor interview, and he walks through. So I walk into that other room, and I'm watching the press conference, and I'm seeing like sort of the line of questioning is like, people forget I've been around long enough to remember the whole Sims Hostetler thing. Yeah. I was there for all of it, and you could see the leading questions going in this, and I said to myself, look, thank God he has Tyrod Taylor, but let's not blur lines here. Now I'm hearing about Tyrod's decision making. He looks a little bit more decisive than Jones, and because Jones was taking a pounding, and Jones didn't have Saquon Barkley, who is a threat, whether his yards per carry are high or whether his yards per carry were low. But there was volume runs with 21 carries that keeps a defense honest, and that gives a quarterback that extra beat, just the extra beat, to find somebody as opposed to running for your life. And all I know is this. The last time Daniel Jones was on the football field with Saquon Barkley, they scored 31 points in the second half against Arizona. I don't know if they've scored 31 points since then. So let's not go crazy about all this in comparison to the quarterbacks, because 26 matters more than anybody can imagine.
The action pass, as Coach Daboll call it, I call it play action pass. They call it the action passing game. The volume of runs, the threat of Saquon Barkley, his home run threat, allowed them to get some footballs down the field. He makes a difference. It's a team, folks. So I would say that you must, for the sake of your own mental fandom, lose this unhealthy obsession with, you can not like a guy, great. But when you start to do these comparisons or these comparables, and then you just gloss over 3 weks ago as if it never happened, you're bordering on obsession. There's this, and I'm gonna just say it, there's this weirdo obsession with Kayvon Thibodeaux. Like, the guy comes off a game where he's a candidate for player of the week. And I literally get in my timeline, well, getting a sack off a blitz is different than getting a sack rushing the passer. And I said, does it count any less? Does it have any less impact for your defense if your player gets a sack? What is this? It's weirdo. My local radio guys here, someone sent me a clip where they called him fat. They say he doesn't have twitch. And I'm like, are you dating him or are you watching football? Because the guy just came off a monster game, and the only thing you can say is he's fat and he doesn't have twitch. Well, he's twitchy enough. Yeah, 8 pressures in a game.
He's got bad hands. I'll give him that.
Well, yeah, that's why he plays linebacker and rushes the passer. But that's something he has to make those plays. But it's just this weird obsession as fans that we've kind of devolved to. And I still blame it on the shit they consume on morning talk, because they throw these dumbass theories out. But folks, if you're a fan of your team and your team is winning and your guy is playing well, the last fucking thing you should be worried about is if a guy doesn't have the perfect body. Go tell your wife she doesn't have the perfect body. See how that goes in your house, right? But it's just weird. It's bordering on weirdo behavior. Like, you have to find something. Okay, you just told me everything you don't like. What do you like? Right? The guy is effective. He's doing a great job for you. Let's not do that. You should. I'm not telling you how you should fan, but it would be in your best interest mentally to enjoy your victories. Enjoy when your guy does well and stop making up dumb crap just so that you can beat a guy down and then you call yourself a fan.
Well,
go ahead.
No, it's what I remember Dan Reeves, when he and I were doing the show, the late Dan Reeves on Sirius NFL Radio, and the league announced that coaches' tape would be basically up for sale on the NFL Game Pass or whatever. And I remember talking to Coach and during a commercial break or whatever, and he's like, ooh, he goes, game film in the wrong people's hands just creates another layer of headaches for us as coaches, because it's just everybody thinks they're an expert. Everybody thinks they're an analyst, and they start looking at stuff. Because if they don't really know what they're looking at, you could draw some really wrong conclusions on things.
Yeah.
And I think you're right. I mean, all I know is he's part of a defense, and he's had a genuine impact on a defense that held Buffalo to 14 points, going into the game, averaged 32 points a game. And the other narrative, too, is Washington. So everybody just says Washington because the Giants tend to beat Washington a lot. But Washington, Carl, they came into the game averaging 25 points per game.
Mm-hmm.
They had the 7th best red zone offense in the NFL and the 10th best red zone defense. And they had 8 pass plays during this year of over 30 yards. And they had 1 pass play of over 30 yards. And they were held to 7 points when they averaged 25 a game. Like, so let's not just sit here and just because they always beat Washington, let's not poo-poo that. This defense is playing at a very high level. And he's a big part of why they're playing at that high level. So stop with all the tape stuff.
Well, yeah, and that's a whole nother thing. And Washington probably doesn't score 7 if the Giants don't miss their field goal.
Oh, I mean, they hadn't gotten across midfield but once.
Yeah. 40-something yards in the first half. Now to the positives. Tay Banks is a baller. Deontay Banks took on one of the NFL's premier receivers. And I say premier. He's underrated, but he's a premier receiver.
Very much so.
And he battled and he battled McCurlin. Comes up with a big interception that was not easy. I mean, he had to play some instincts. They were on the zone. Reads the quarterback, plays the ball, undercuts the receiver, and catches it like the receiver. He's a physical at the point of attack cornerback. And that's the one thing. And this is the cheat code, folks, because we'll sit up and, some of my teammates like Mark Collins and we'll watch a guy line up and press and never press. He'll line up and you might as well tie his hands behind his back because they give a free release. Tay Banks, if he lines up and press, get ready. He's putting his hands in your chest. He gets called for holding one time because McCurlin couldn't get off his press. This guy is the real deal. And be happy you got him. He's going to have a great future in the NFL as a cornerback, and he's a rising star.
You know what, Carl, I hear this a lot, right? Like, and I think it's just, I in defense of the Giant fan, with the exception of last year and 2016, it's been a decade of blah to bad football.
Mm-hmm.
And the fan base is frustrated. And they were hoping off of last year that the team was going to be more dominant this year or whatever. But people in the know understand that when you're scraping a roster apart and doing a teardown and a rebuild, which is basically what this new regime came in, not only from a coaching standpoint, but from a scouting standpoint, there are times where you're going to take a step back.
Sure.
Before you really get the foundation poured. But like, you think about how many times have you heard Giants fans say, how come we never draft a guy like that? Whether it's Trayvon Diggs, who came in with swagger right out of the gate, or, Micah Parsons, who came in dominant. I just use those two guys because they're in the division.
Mm-hmm.
But don't fall asleep on Tay Banks' swagger. I mean, Wink Martindale decided to play with the game on the line, cover 0, and he had Tay Banks on Terry McLaurin. Yeah. And he's in Terry McLaurin's face, wagging his finger. Now, is it going to come back to bite him at some point? Sure, of course. That's what happens with corners, especially young ones. But look, guys, Giants fans, you got a guy that's got, as Bill Raftery would say, onions.
He's got onions.
Scared.
That's for sure.
He is not scared.
Hey, how about this? They have so much confidence in him. They said, you're going to travel with McCurlin. Everywhere he goes, you're traveling with him.
Only a few times he didn't. Yeah, only a few times he didn't.
And that says a great deal about the confidence that they have in this kid's ability and his ability to grasp what they're asking him to do and incorporate it into things that come natural to him. So he's a physical kid. He's, like I said, if he lines up in press, you're getting a hand in your chest because this kid he knows the assignment and he gets it done. The other parts of this defense, you can't ignore the play of both these inside linebackers. Bobby Okereke is at home. Micah McFadden, when, I've always said he knew how to find the football. He's making tackles. He's making plays. Leonard Williams. And this is the other, he's never good enough for anybody, but he's good enough for what they need him to do, because here's another little news flash. I don't know if you guys are paying attention, but they move him out to defensive end now. Sometimes he's opposite of Kayvon Thibodeaux at end. And the pressure he can generate from there to inside has enabled this defensive line to do a lot of stuff. And also they have some depth there. When they move him out, they can move Nacho into the game and do some things on the interior. But that defensive front is part and parcel to why these linebackers are having so much success.
Yeah, and A'Shawn Robinson got more snaps in the game too. Yeah. And, again, Giants fans want to poo-poo it because it's Washington, and you think of Washington, you think of the fact that you beat them regularly, although the games are always close, but the Giants most of the time find a way to win them. But this was another team that they had a good run game coming into the game. Brian Robinson is a legitimate
Yeah.
back. The Giants shut that down.
Yeah. I listen, folks.
I don't like the narrative of, well, they just beat Washington.
Well,
You know what I
yes.
mean?
The answer to that should be and. Because if they lost to Washington, you'd be like, I can't believe they were lost to Washington.
And this is the same Washington team that went to Philadelphia. And if Ron Rivera, only known to him that he wouldn't go for two at the end of regulation after they went on an 80-yard drive and shoved the ball down Philadelphia's throat and get the game tied, and decides for once to kick an extra point as opposed to going for the win. And then the excuse he used was, well, it was a long drive. My team was gassed. Well, wasn't the defense even more gassed? And you had all the momentum?
Yeah.
That's another story for another day.
Yeah. Can I just say this real quick, though? Because I think, Phil Simms talked about this. It's rewarding for your offense. When you're on a drive, right, and you got a chance to win the game, I don't think one guy in that huddle, not one of them, would look at each other and says, boy, I hope we kick this damn field goal because I'm tired. I don't have another play in me. They're begging to win this game. But that's a Washington problem. That's a Ron problem. That ain't them, as they say, them ain't our problems. But the Giants will take their wins as they earned them. They earned it, whether it was against Bergen Catholic or
easy.
Well, hey, listen. They take it as it comes. They didn't make the schedule. They just got to play it. And they won that one, and they're trying to get ready for the next one.
Let's educate our audience a second on something, because I don't think I hear from too many people, whether it's on social media or people that I'm friends with, first down, handoff Barkley, gain of 2. First down, next drive, handoff Barkley, gain of 2.5. First down, next drive, handoff Barkley, gain of 1.5 yards. First down, handoff Barkley, gain of 4.5. There's a complementary football means a lot of different things. It's not just offense, defense, special teams, but it is tied to special teams, and I'll get to that in a second. When your defense is playing as well as the Giants' defense is playing, a punt is not necessarily a bad thing, as opposed to putting the ball in harm's way unnecessarily and grab bagging. The other thing, Carl, is this. Volume of run. I do my serious show with Charlie Weiss, and he's a tremendous play caller. And he always talks about run volume. Yeah, you don't want negative run plays, but if you could just get 2 or 3, the dirty 2 or 3, and just keep the threat of the run game there with your running back, who the defense has spent all week game planning for, because he is one of the difference maker players in the NFL at that position. And they are constantly having to account for him. He's going to crack one for 12. You hope he might crack one for 40. But even if his longest run is 12, it opens up the middle of the field so that Darren Waller can now have 98 yards receiving.
Yep.
And that you can then hit a slant, and you can do all these other things. If I hear one more time, oh my God, they run it on first down with Barkley every time. Yeah, okay, that's fine. That's part of playing complementary football. And then you're the same, and you're the same people then that complain if you come out shotgun. Why are they in shotgun? And why is the quarterback getting blasted on first down and getting sacked and losing 13 yards? They're playing to their team.
Right. And those 2 yards, those dirty 2 yards, keeps you operating in the green. It's not drop back sacks 2nd and 15 or 2nd and 20. So as long as you're operating in the green, so if you're 2nd and 8 and then all of a sudden you're 3rd and 5, that's pretty good options you have as a play caller. When you're 3rd and 5, your playbook is open to you. When you're 3rd and 10, 12 or beyond, you have limited options. You can run a draw, but they're going to play for a draw. You can run a screen, but you don't run screens very well. So operating in the green with a guy like Saquon Barkley means that any one of those two could be 22 or 42. So you just keep pounding, because a defense, when you have a Saquon Barkley back there, they're holding their breath every time he touches the ball. They're holding their breath that they can beat a block and that he doesn't make somebody miss, because if he makes you miss, it's going to be a 10 or 12-yard gain. So that's pressure. A guy like that puts pressure on your defense. And then knowing that you got a defense where players don't play hard every play anyway, you're going to get it. And then you saw the double move as a result of just them having to commit safeties with the threat of the run. Jalen Hyatt, I said it last week, I'll say it again. They have to stay intentional about getting this kid to football, because
I think they've made that decision.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. But, just I'll tell you, the football IQ that probably kind of went over everybody's head because of all the other things that he did. He broke up an interception, folks, but how he did it, he was actually being pushed out of bounds. He swats the defender out of the way just to get back in play to break up an interception. If you guys get a chance to look at that clip, you're going to say, this kid has great football awareness, great ball tracking skills, because he wasn't going to be able to catch the ball, but he made sure that he could get back into play just so that he could break that ball up, because he was being ridden out of bounds, and he somehow swam the guy, the defender, got back in the field of play without stepping out of bounds, and breaks up a pass. And that is, to me, as big a play as he made the entire day, including some big catches.
Graham Gano's got to make his field goal.
Yeah.
But he knows that. It's almost like Mariano Rivera in his prime with the Yankees. Like, if he ever, the rare time he blew a save, it like shocked you.
Yeah.
Dabes did tell me that when the stadium is available, because MetLife Stadium, well, I don't think what people understand is that MetLife Stadium is a multi-used facility. So there's commercials that are being shot in the building. There's events. It gets rented out for corporate events and all this other stuff. But he did tell me, he said, yeah, the special teams guys will go over the stadium and kick punts and kick field goals and do all that other stuff to kind of get acclimated to the wind in the stadium. They will shoot across the parking lot when the building is available. So, because you and I were wondering about this, we talked about how even when you guys used to practice on the grass practice field, the specialists would go in the stadium.
Sure.
And I know Coughlin would send the guys over from the Quest Diagnostics Training Center, and Dable and his staff are doing the same thing. Can I give I have two little, just quick shout outs I want to give.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
Shout out number one is I want to give it to Jamie Gillen. The Giants special teams, they signed Gunnar Olszewski this week, who was a first-team All-Pro in 2020 with the Patriots, to the practice squad. He's a return guy. He's a punt returning, kick returning specialist. Yep. Now, he's had some ball handling issues as well, more on the returns than on actually fielding the punts. And he was let go by Pittsburgh. But I want to give Jamie Gillen, because Jamie Gillen wasn't that good for last year. But Jamie Gillen has had a quiet, really nice season for the Giants with the direction of punts, the height of the punts, keeping them outside the numbers. And he's been a very effective part of the Giants defense. And then the other shout out I want to give is to Saquon Barkley in this regard. We've seen, the running back market the way it is. Jonathan Taylor got his money from the Colts. Josh Jacobs got more money than Barkley got on his franchise, rework deal. And Saquon has been such a leader and a positive sort of vibe within the building, whether you see him in the cafeteria, hanging with his teammates, his leadership, demeanor. And I know there was this story this past week that I guess Joe Shane had pulled him aside and said, hey, look, the trade deadline's coming. We're not trading him. And he wants to be with the Giants. But I've seen this movie a million times before, and I've seen it go a lot of other ways in a negative way. And I just want to give a guy a shout out for being true to his word. He came into the door with a smile at the beginning of camp. He wasn't happy about the contract situation, but nothing has changed. Even with the other guys getting deals, his demeanor around his teammates and within the building, and even on the field before the games, he stops to sign some autographs and stuff. I just want to tip my cap to the guy, just observing him in the cafeteria every day.
He's a pro's pro, but he loves football. He loves his teammates. And he wants to do everything he can as a New York Giant to be a part of success and to be a part of building and winning a championship. So he's a pro's pro, but he's the heart and soul. He is that guy, man. He doesn't care if they run him 50 times, he'll take every 50 and run them like it's the first one, or if they run him 5, as long as it contributes to a victory. And that's all he's about. Like that's what a Giant is. Like, say what you want about him. It's not coming from a genuine place. If it's negative, I can tell you that, because this guy is a Giant. He is the epitome of a New York Giant.
All right. Anything else to get off your chest? We'll be back later in the week to do the preview of the Jets.
Yeah, really quick. Wan'Dale Robinson, difference maker in the game. But listen, folks, root for your team. Don't look for reasons why you don't like a guy. Look for reasons why you should, because he's there on your team. And the narratives, I'll say, be independent thinkers. Don't digest all the shit that's being, pooped out on TV.
And all you could do is win one in a row.
That's
and
right.
They got one game winning streak. And this coming week, they're going to try to make it 2 1-game winning streaks. We'll be back later in the week. How do we like to end it?
Tell a friend to tell a friend.
Bleav in Giants.
In Giants.